to this week's talk on the Sedra of Eikev. And we're also going to speak about the festival of Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, which is Wednesday of this week. And we are dedicating our learning to the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF, the speedy and complete healing of all of the wounded, and refuah sheleima for Rivka Yittel bas Rochel. And beginning with the festival of Tu B'Av, which is the day that this video will be sent out, and it's considered a minor festival to the extent that many people may not have heard about it at all. And if we just read from the Mishnah in Ta'anit 26b, translating from there, talking about Tu B'Av, there were no happier festivals for Israel than Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. On these days, the young women of Jerusalem would go out dancing in the vineyards. They would borrow white dresses so as not to embarrass the poor maidens who could not afford a white dress. And what would they say? Lift up your eyes, young man, and decide which woman you will choose to marry. Do not look for riches or for family. Grace is deceitful and beauty is in vain. Sheka hachein vehevel hayofi. And the woman who reveres the Lord, she shall be praised. Isha yiras Hashem, he tishalal. And this is the aspect of the day that the Mishnah is talking about. But there were other events that happened on this day as well. To mention a few of them, in the generation of the Midbar, of the wilderness, after the Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the scouts, the people of Israel were told that anybody who was 20 years old and above would not enter the land of Israel. And for the next 40 years, on the night of Tisha B'Av, they would dig their graves, and those who reached the age of 60 would pass away, and anybody who would not yet reach that age would then be alive at the end of the day. When it came to the 40th year, that the decree had actually expired, and then the people thought perhaps they'd made a mistake with the date, so they repeated this ritual the following day. And again, the same thing happened. Everybody got out of the graves that they had dug, and so on. They carried on the following and the following day until the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, when they realized that actually that the decree was no longer in effect, and this was a celebration that they had gone through this period of very difficult challenge. So that's perhaps the earliest reference to something that happened on Tu B'Av that was a turning point. And if we look, for example, at the other things that happened on Tu B'Av, the ban on intertribal marriage was lifted. The tribe of Benjamin was welcomed back into the fold of the 12 tribes of Israel, and the people who had been killed in the terrible massacre by the Romans of Beitar were brought in for burial on Tu B'Av. And interesting, actually, a climatic observation that from the 15th of Av, there was no longer the wood available. The wood that was used for the altar for the Mizbeach could not be taken from wood that was felled after 15th of Av, because the temperature that drops, the sun is less intense, and there's a possibility that the damp in the wood can be a fertile ground for worms, which invalidates such wood from use on the Mizbeach. So all of these things that are really perhaps a common denominator of a turning point, that the seventh day, if we go, this is actually the seventh day after Tisha B'Av. And if we think of Tisha B'Av as the lowest point of suffering and great despair, And from that point, it's as if we are all collectively sitting Shiva. And then the seventh day is the day, as a mourner is told at the end of the 7-day period, they are told to get up. And this is really what we are doing on Tu B'Av. We are acknowledging those mistakes of the past, but we are getting up and we are going towards this concept of rebuilding, of learning from past mistakes, of this energy, that energy of blessing, energy of having faced up to what went wrong and having remedied it, that we are really in a better position than we were before it all actually happened. And this fits in with the theme of the Sedra of Eikev that we read this coming Shabbos. And we've mentioned that translation is all generally problematic, and especially in a case like the word Eikev, because the translations will often read because, and if we just go to the very beginning of the Sedra where the word appears first, that is chapter 7, verse 12. V'haya eikev tishma'un el hamishpatim ha'ele, or shamartem v'asisem osam. And it will be because, so eikev is here translated as because of your listening to these laws, and you keep them and you perform them. And this, the actual meaning of the word Eikev is heal. And for obvious reasons, the translation, the literal translation, is not going to flow in English, is not going to make sense. So we can understand why the translations rather choose the word that makes sense. However, we have so much to learn from these footsteps. And I think continuing the theme of the footsteps that lead us out of the despair of Tisha B'Av to the joy of Tu B'Av, we can look at this concept of Eikev, the word, the root Eikev, and it's associated with a famous phrase, Ikvasa de Mashiach, which means literally the footsteps of Moshiach. And this concept of footsteps is something that follows a path. And also, for a moment, thinking about the anatomy of the heel, although the classic understanding of why the word Eikev is used here, Rashi explains that we should think of the mitzvahs, in inverted commas, the perhaps seemingly less significant mitzvahs that a person might tread upon with their heel, and really make sure that we observe them with as much focus as we would a mitzvah that we consider to be extremely important. So that is one classic definition of why the word Eikev is used, referring so specifically to part of the anatomy. But we can also look at the heel as the point at which the body is grounded, makes contact with the earth underneath it. And if we consider the earth as the lower realms, representing material and prosperity and earthiness, literally, and the body from the feet upwards, representing the spiritual realms, the human being endowed with the neshama, the holy spark of Hashem. And really the heel is that point of contact. The heel is where we are going to try to elevate the lower, join the lower and the higher. And this concept of footsteps is relevant in that sense. And specifically to the land of Israel, in the Sedra that talks about the beauty of the land of Israel, that talks about the 7 species and describes the unique qualities of the land of Israel, that we can remember that there's a mitzvah that anybody who walks 4 steps in the land of Israel is considered as if they have performed a mitzvah. And we can't say that about anywhere else in the world. And as we are blessed to be able to live in the land of Israel in a way that perhaps 70, 80 years ago our ancestors could barely have dreamed of. But we can see, for example, that recent archaeological discoveries have shown, have brought to life the very path that the pilgrims, the people who were Ole Regel on the 3-foot festivals would walk. We are able to walk that actual path. If you go to the city of David in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, you can walk that path with your footsteps. And really, it is such a unique experience to think that our ancestors, when they were able to express their gratitude and joy in the Beit HaMikdash, but in this way, to actually walk on the steps that they trod, is a very unique experience. And we have a recent concept here, I think, in Israel, of the footsteps. The very ground that we walk on is so full of connection and holiness. And in the cases I'm referring to now, that in many cities there are walkways and special staircases leading from the bottom of a hill right to the top, and they are named after the heroes who gave their lives to protect us. And I feel, as I walk on these, I feel this great sense. My footsteps are, I'm walking in their boots. I'm walking because of their heroism. I'm walking in this land of Israel. And this is also a very special feeling of the footsteps and the land of Israel. And then if we want to think, how can we make sure that these footsteps that we walk are taking us in the right direction? And I think that there are 2 messages that are very present in this week's Sedra. And the first is, if we look at chapter 8, verse 10, we have the mitzvah, V'achalta v'savata uverachta, to make sure that we don't walk on the wrong path, that our footsteps are leading us on the right path. We have a unique opportunity when we eat and we are satisfied. And that is the danger point, that when we have plenty or even enough, that we can forget to be grateful. But this mitzvah of benching, of saying grace after meals when we've eaten bread, is a fantastic way to connect us back to these themes of gratitude, to these themes of walking on the right path, and acknowledging that every morsel that we have is really a gift and a blessing from Hashem. And we are invited to return that blessing, to bless Hashem, as it were. And I think another important way that we can make sure that our footsteps tread on the right path is that we look at the 2nd paragraph of the Shema, which is also in this week's Sedra. And in this paragraph, in this reading of that we say daily of the 2nd paragraph of Shema, that we see that Hashem is telling us we need to listen to his words, to his mitzvahs, and then we will be worthy of reward. And this and the opposite is true, that if we don't, then we are going to be worthy of punishment. And this concept is enshrined in the 11th of the 13 principles of faith enunciated by Maimonides, the Rambam. And if we read that out, Ani ma'amin be'emunah sheleima, I believe with perfect faith, shehabore yisborach shemo, that the Creator, blessed is his name, gomel tov l'shomrei mitzvosov, apportions good to those who observe his mitzvahs, umanish la'ovrei mitzvosov, and punishes those who transgress his mitzvahs. And I think that these are all ways that we make sure that our footsteps are going to bring us to the concepts of reward, of redemption. And this is how we emerge from the dark time of Tisha B'Av through the festival of the 15th of Av. And we are interesting to note as well that the word in modern Hebrew for consistency is ikvi, which contains the root letters of Eikev, ayin, kuf, ves. And really, I think that we need to strive for consistency in remembering these messages from the mitzvahs that we might think are not so important, right through to the opportunity on a regular basis to bless Hashem and acknowledge the goodness and the gratitude that nourishes us physically and spiritually, and consistently working on our levels of connection and inspiration, and all from the word Eikev, which might be translated as because, but means so much more. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.